Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, I think the times are a-changing because the story we're going to look at would never have come out while Nicola Sturgeon was in charge of the SNP. Well, access media, they need to have access. If they were to put this out when Nicola Sturgeon was there, they'd never have got a reporter anywhere near any stories to do with them. And so they had to sort of be a bit differential. But those days have gone. The writing's on the wall. All the mainstream media now see that the SNP is a spent force. They're a busted flush. They no longer have the respect or the power they once had. And so stories like the one we're about to look at are starting to come out. But bear in mind when you see this, look at the first one I did today about Humza Yousaf, in whom the SNP have a leader who is anti-Semitic, who is supportive of a group that wants to eradicate Jews from the face of the planet. And so when we look at this story, you can see why the vast proportion of SNP supporters are quite like Humza Yousaf, given their history. And boy, are we going to look at their history. It isn't pleasant, but it is, alas for them, true. Here goes. So the SNP must ditch tribute to man who wanted the National Socialists to win the Second World War at the first King's speech in over 70 years. Hugh McDermott, not his real name, is a hero to Scottish nationalists, but is a sinister figure who admitted to disliking the English and wanting the Axis powers to prevail over the UK and her allies. Did he think it would stop there? No, he was a racist. And of course, now you're being led by another racist who hates the English, but actually hates white people generally, but certainly hates the English. And the one before that, Nicola Sturgeon, hated the English, probably stood up by an Englishman when she was young. It's all anti-English racism. That's what the SNP is. And of course they were formed, and their big hero is someone who could be described as a Scot Nazi, because he was one who supported the German cause during the war. And they pay tribute to him, they love him, they think he's the greatest ever. This is who the SNP are. You know, they wanted the Germans to win. Tuesday will bring a touch of history to Westminster. For the first time in over 70 years, a king will give a speech in the Commons. The state opening of Parliament will see Charles III set out his government's agenda for the next parliamentary year. That's today. It's later on today. We'll be watching that. And with the general election on the horizon, it is bound to be one of the most eagerly anticipated addresses of recent years. It is an occasion full of pomp and circumstance, and while Charles has represented his mother before, it will have an added poignancy, being the first since the Queen's death in September last year. First time it will be a king's speech. And it's going to be, a bit of history in the making, really. The Nat politicians will likely don the White Rose of Scotland. The flower is a nod to the poem The Little White Rose by Hugh McDermott, who was the founder of the SNP, or the National Party of Scotland as he called it, which is a predecessor of the modern SNP. It is National Socialism by any other name. He was someone who was anti-Semitic, anti-English, filled with hate, presumably because of his own miserable, sad experiences of growing up, and couldn't find anything in his soul, probably didn't even have a soul. So far, so sweet, he says, but there is a sinister aspect to this. McDermott, whose real name was Christopher Murray Grieve, and boy did he have a lot of grievances, is a romantic figure to the Scottish nationalists, but many of his views will disgust decent people. At various times in his life, McDermott supported fascism and Stalinism, ideologies responsible for the deaths of millions of people across the world during his lifetime, because he just revelled in the death of people. That's who he is, an absolute psychopath. That's why all the leaders of the SNP are always psychopaths. He also wanted the Nazis to win the Second World War. It's one of those words that YouTube don't like, so you have to do something else. We'll call them the nasties from now on. He wanted the nasties to win the Second World War, calling the Axis powers less dangerous than our own government. That's who this guy is. He's someone who would gladly have walked into a concentration camp and thought they were doing good work. Well, I think he is someone who should have been in there, but not the one wearing the uniform, but the one in the pyjamas. That should have been enough for the SNP to want to distance themselves from a man who also described hating English people as a hobby. But given the current tension in the Middle East, it would be doubly insulting to honour a man who expressed a desire to the anti-Semitic ideology of the nasties to prevail in the WW2. British Jews already feel under siege, with the regular anti-Israel marches now taking place, backed by the Scottish First Minister, another anti-Semitic, English-hating, anti-white racist, who now runs Scotland badly. Many calling for a ceasefire in Gaza have been at pains to claim they also support Jewish people. Now the SNP have a chance to show actions speak louder than words and ditch the white rose. If they put on that white rose at today's speech, that's the equivalent of putting on the old crooked cross. That's no different. It represents the same thing. The white rose they wear is the crooked cross of the nasties during WW2. Because that's who these people are. Make no mistake about it. They are all a hate-filled bunch of deceptive, nasty, loathsome creatures. They think that they are good and virtuous, but they are inhuman scum, psychopathic, unsympathetic, lacking empathy, lacking a soul, and who would easily and happily see millions killed in their cause. That's who they are. Now, some will dismiss McDermott's nasty support as being a casual remark, especially when he was critical of appeasement. But his words cannot be underestimated. Despite believing the nasties were more violently evil for the time being in 1941, the impact of a German victory on Jewish people the world over cannot be overestimated. And to honour McDermott would be an obscene slap in the face to British Jews who once again find themselves subject to so much hatred by the likes of Humza Yousaf, who strangely aligns himself with the very people who agree with, let's just say, genetic cleansing, and for whom Humza Yousaf would be anathema and would be eventually in the camps himself. That's who these people are, and look at them. Deutschland, über alles must be running through their brains. I'm coming up. Now, we should make no bones about it, of course. The SNP, the Scottish National Socialist Party, are a force of evil, a force of division. They're a party that want to control. They want a single-party dictatorship state. You have to agree with the party or you'd be put in basically concentration camps. That's where they are. The cult of personality. They need to be declared for what they are. Terrorist organisation, made illegal, and arrest the top hierarchy and try them for crimes against humanity, especially for what they've done with the elderly in Scotland, because they've had their own little genocide, haven't they? Anyway, I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. Let us just treat these people with contempt, and let's watch to see if they will wear their little white crooked cross today. Thank you and goodbye.